Math 1314, Tyler Junior College, Section 4.4, Exponential and Logarithmic Equations, Bonus Mathematical Lunacy. I write the titles of the videos on the side for when I upload them. If you're watching this video, you're either really curious, really intellectual, or really twisted from a mathematical perspective. Either way, welcome. In the previous video, this was the answer to an equation, to a solution to an equation. We solved an exponential equation, it got ugly, and this is where we ended up. And it was the correct answer. But I kind of hinted that if you were curious, you could actually condense this into one log, and I want to show you how. It's not nearly as hard as you might think, especially if you have already watched the video series for section 4.3, specifically the video, I believe it was 4.3.5, no, 4.3.6 for condensing logarithmic expressions. The numerator is something we could have done in that video, as is the denominator. I'm not going to write all the properties. If you're watching this video, you probably have them written down or memorized already. I'm just going to do it. The numerator is easy to condense. We can use the product rule after we move this 2 in as an exponent. So the 2 goes in on the 7 as a power, and then the product rule says we can multiply the arguments. So the top will condense into log of 3 times 7 squared. We'll figure out what 3 times 7 squared is in just a second. It's 147. I can do the same thing in the denominator, except I would use the quotient rule because of the minus. The positive log's argument would be the numerator of the new argument. And after we move the 5 in as an exponent on the 3, that would become the denominator. So now we've got it down to 2 logs. Before I show you how to smush it down into 1 log, let's go ahead and work out both of these arguments. As I mentioned, 3 times 7 squared is 147. And in case you're wondering how I worked that out so quickly, this is what I thought. I love sharing. They're not really secrets, but they're just how some of us appear to be smarter than we are. I didn't do 3 times 49. I did 3 times 50 minus 1. And I used the distributive property to get 150 minus 3. And that's how I did 3 times 49 was 147. When you do more math, you start picking up on things like that, and your brain just gets better and better at it. Over here we have 7 over 3 to the 5th. I just happen to know that 3 to the 5th is 243. That's not right. 343. That's not right either. 243. I know 3 to the 4th is 81, and 81 times 3 is not that hard to do. Okay, so we got it down to 2 logs, but now what? We have 1 log on top of another, and none of our rules for condensing or expanding said anything about 1 log on top of another, but another rule did. Remember the change of base property? It said this equals a ratio of logarithms. I have a ratio of logarithms. If we do the change of base property backwards, remember how the change of base property worked? It said if you have a logarithm, you can write it as a ratio of logarithms. The original argument is the argument of the numerator, which means this would have been 147. But the original base was the argument of the denominator, which means the base over here is an inconvenient but correct 7 243rds. And therefore that logarithm condenses all the way down to log base 7 243rds of 147. Yeah. Again, mental exercises like this aren't meant to provide skills to become an accountant or an architect or anything like that. Exercises like this are meant to improve your mental capabilities by firing neurons in your brain, creating synapses that weren't normally there. Just like muscles, the more you work those synapses, the stronger they become and the more useful your brain becomes overall. As a student, you should thrive on anything that makes your brain work better, especially if it's stuff that you think is difficult. Because let's face it, ask your smartest friends. Condense this into 1 logarithm. If they're not math people, they won't even know what the question is asking. But even if they are math people, it's probably a better chance than not that they won't be able to do it. This isn't something that's normally taught. This is just something that I said, hey, I wonder. And the answer is, yeah, I could. Don't ever be afraid to challenge yourself. Don't be afraid to seek help. Just try it. The worst thing you can do is say, oh, it's too hard. Quit being a wuss. Just try it. Get some help. And you'd be surprised what you can do if you push yourself hard enough.